How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Modern Men Monday. And this week we're trying a little something different because good old me is at work right now in the real world, but in Sunday land where I'm at right now, I don't have to work. So I apologize for the premiere gimmick. But hey, here we are. We're all able to make it via recording. So if you guys don't like that, my bad. I'm sorry. But we'll be back live next week with something special we're going to announce at the end of this show. But I've rambled on long enough. Let's just go ahead and get to the panel. First, my co-host, as usual, perfect attendance live and now recorded, ComicManAndy. Andy, my God, the beard is majestic tonight. How is that possible?
It's just from the grace of God.
Very cool.
Now, do you have one comb or multiple combs? It seems like a multiple comb project at this point.
I've got 5 or 6 of them running around somewhere. This is the one I just try to keep at the computer.
Awesome. Next, my other co-host right down there, JB from DiscoveryBay Comics. Man, this guy has been killing it on his channel, pop-up shops, giving all these dollar books to the community. JB, how you been doing, man?
Only as well as my children. My schedule is rolling with them. So, right now this is working. So let's roll.
Awesome. We're happy to have you back this week. We missed you last week. I know you were ready to talk about some Daredevil, but this week you're going to talk about some Superman, some good old DC
Definitely.
Comics. Yeah. And you know who likes DC Comics? DruManchu, baby. Drew, how you doing?
DruManchu.
I get a lot of shade, guys, for not liking DC Comics, but I'm pretty sure this was my randomizer selection that I offered up to the populace. So I'm very happy that we're getting to read some quality DC reads. And more about that coming up soon, but I don't want to. Let's go ahead and bury the lead and just talk All-Star Superman. Very excited to be.
Yeah. So tonight we'll be talking about some alternate realities, some future timelines. We're just going outside the main continuity because when you're thinking All-Star Superman, this isn't exactly inside your main DC continuity. So this is just a phenomenal example of a book that can be written when you're not exactly thinking about the main continuity and tying into these big events and all that stuff. But before we get into all that, of course, we gotta visit All-Star Superman. So this is my big boy absolute edition of All-Star Superman. I love this book so much. I had to get me the big dog.
Wow.
$100, $99.99 US. Phenomenal version of this book. This is like your 4K Blu-ray with all the extras, the director and actors commentary. It smells like a paint coating on your wall. Phenomenal piece of art for the collection. But you guys already know where I'm going to go with this. I love this book. But I want to hear what some of you guys who haven't read this book previously thought about it. So once again, Andy, as usual, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on All-Star Superman? We did read 1 through 6, by the way. So we just read Volume 1. So what did you think about Volume 1, bud?
Well, I mean, if your book smells like a coat of paint, hopefully reading it wasn't like watching paint dry. So I was a little concerned going into this because traditionally I'm not a fan of DC. Growing up, I'm even less of a fan of Superman. Surprise, surprise, I'm just not a big fan of Superman. But when I got into this within the first couple of pages, some of the quips, some of the jokes hold me right in. Brought me right in, and I really liked how they introduced All-Star Superman in the beginning. I don't know. I really wasn't expecting a lot going into this, and I was really rewarded. I was rewarded with a really good story, writing that was, how many times have I read Morrison stuff? I should know better. If I'm getting a Morrison book, I'm getting a really good read, and Quitely's art. It's on point. I definitely want to read Volume 2. I'm not sure it really sells me as a fan of DC, but I'm digging it. I'm really digging it.
Yeah, awesome. And that's why I like All-Star. I always say to people, like, this is one of those books, like, if you're just like kind of like wanting to get into comics and you want to get into the mainstream comics and you want to know a little bit to say about more Superman, this is the ultimate Superman book, in my opinion, to hop right into. I mean, it's a little deep at times, but hey, I mean, that's DC Comics for you at times.
Well, I mean, it's pretty lighthearted too at times.
It is
jokes,
absolutely.
And I can't find the panel at the moment. One of my favorite parts was when he's takes Lois Lane to the Fortress of Solitude, and he pulls out just a key, just a rinky-dinky little key, and she's just kind of like laughing at him. But he's like, this thing weighs like 1 billion tons, and sets it on the ground and asks her to pick it up, and as it's sitting there, it's just crushing the cement, waiting for her to pick it up, and she can't. Well, that was pretty neat.
Yeah, I like that part too. JB, you just got done reading it. What about
I
you?
did get to I got all the way to the middle of the 6th book. I'll be honest with you. I did not finish the 6th book, so I'm not sure how this is going to end right now. But I don't read a lot of DC. I was confused. I didn't know some of these characters, these time traveling Samson, and the goofiness about, hey, it's your birthday, drink this, potion, and you can have all my powers for 24 hours. Come on, man. That's some silliness. What the hell is that? And then these guys are fighting over super Lois Lane there. I don't know. It just seems kind of goofy. Now, what I do like about it is the overall arc, which is just this little snippet introduced of, hey, Lex Luthor's in jail. Hey, Lex Luthor is on trial. He drops a hint earlier that he's got this special interview lined up. That part of the story that is happening amongst all this goofiness is, which I kind of call it. I think, the storyline is kind of goofy. Hey, there's the kid from the dinosaur who's living in the center of the earth wants to go take over the earth, and that's why Samson threw him up in the sky. It seems so silly. I don't know these characters, so that part of it I wasn't really digging. The art was okay. I didn't think it was fantastic. I think it was okay. There was a couple of really nice splash scenes, but I think I got to see how it ends now. This overall arc with Luthor is pretty good, and the way he's weaving this good story amongst all this kind of silliness in my mind, because I don't know these characters. It seems to be kind of fascinating. It seems to be taking a while to get to the point, though. So hopefully, is that Morrison? I can't think of anything else Morrison I've ever read, to be honest with you.
I don't think it's so much Morrison as it is Superman. And
is that Superman?
I'm with Andy on most of this. I'm more familiar with classic DC continuity and classic Superman storytelling. I'm just not a huge Superman fan because of when I grew up. What I do love that I found that I love now, and it's really pretty much through the experience of reading this story, is I love Silver Age Superman because they're self-contained stories and they're really, really silly. This is
I'm confused about all the different Supermans and the timelines.
Right. This seems to be less Morrison's hands all over something to me, as it is a complete homage to the way that Superman stories were told in the 60s and the 50s. These are golden age to silver age Superman stories where Lois Lane would drink a potion and get powers for a day. These are the kind of things that are going to happen, and these other characters, you don't need to know who they are because they kind of just come in, they're there for this story, and then they're done. Right? They might come back for another adventure later on down the road, but pretty much these characters come in. Superman is the star of the book. They interact with Superman. I would say that when I have like a love-hate relationship with Superman. I love Tomasi's run with him. I love the Super Son stuff, a lot of the modern stuff. I love the way they kind of try to make him more modern by folding in everything from his continuity, the way they did in Rebirth. And I really love the Silver Age silliness of Superman, but most of the time I'm like, why would you? He's uninteresting. He has no weaknesses for the most part, except for kryptonite. He can beat anybody. Where is the interesting storytelling? And I would say that any time I would ask somebody what they like about Superman, all of that list of things is boiled down in All-Star Superman. You get the best of what Superman has to offer throughout the years, and I think it's really a good commentary on his character.
Hey, we got to see what black kryptonite does to him.
Yeah,
that's true.
So, yeah, for me, one of my favorite qualities in this book, and I think Drew had an excellent point talking about, the throwbacks to the Silver Age, where it was a little bit more one-shot style and a bit goofy at times, but the book can also be serious at times, so we'll talk about that. just a bit. But I mean, I think the best quality about this book is, you know, we think of Superman as this alien god who, at this point in this book, the green kryptonite doesn't even hurt him. But I think the best quality is his humanity that he shows throughout this 12-issue run. And if we decide to go and read volume 2, there's so many good parts. I don't think it was in this. It wasn't in this part, but I think it's coming up where this girl, she's thinking about committing suicide, and he basically just parks on the windowsill next to her, and he just talks to her. He already has learned like who her therapist is, what's going on in her life. And instead of like, you know, forcing her off the cliff, he just talks to her, and they just have a moment together. And she decides, you know, life is worth living, not because she met Superman, it's because Superman convinced her life is valuable. And there's several other instances like that. Like he just wants to be with Lois because he finds out he's dying, and he wants to have those last few moments with Lois while he still can. And I think issue 6 is my personal favorite, is because you get to see him as like the mysterious Superman from 4500, when it's really just a guise for him to be able to spend one last day with his dad, Pa Kent, that he didn't get a chance to spend.
Yeah, that's kind of
because
cool.
he was busy being Superman when he was a kid, basically. So I think it was a very powerful, and you get to see him play with frickin' Crypto, which is my panel of the week, by the way.
Yeah,
Frickin' Crypto, man, look how cute he is. But anyway,
so I just finished 6, and we don't get to see what happens here with Luthor.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's why the series keeps going.
Yep. But 12 contained issues is the good news. You'll get the payoff if you keep reading. But anyway.
Well, I'm on the app, so we can keep going.
Yeah. My question was going to be, JB, I can pretty much guess your answer to this.
Yeah.
But it seems like, you know, since they were almost kind of one-shot issues with an overlaying arc, did you guys have a particular storyline that you liked the most, whether it be like him visiting Pa Kent Farm with the time travelers, the Luthor stuff, the Jimmy Olsen issue, the Superwoman issue, and then you had the
prison break issue,
Solitude issue,
the prison interview issue. I think
I'll let you go ahead and talk
coolest.
about that one, JB.
Definitely. And you know, the genius of Luthor, that's the one thing, you know, we had mentioned here, I got to bring Joker into it again. Yeah, in my mind, the Joker is brilliant. I don't read a lot of DC, but in my mind, Luthor is supposed to be brilliant. He's supposed to be brilliant. And sure as shit, he's brilliant in this. You know, he could have left any time. He had a freaking cave there. I mean, it had a staircase, and he could have left any time he wanted. He's playing into something huge, and I'm intrigued by it. So that issue was the one that got me because of how they portrayed Lex Luthor, you know, as being, you know, he's a smart guy. So we'll see what happens there.
What about you, Drew? Did you have a favorite among the first 6?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Super Lois. I think that has all the silliness.
Yeah,
but it also has the heart, and it has that, you know, that Aladdin moment, that whole new world. Let's go on a magic carpet ride. Like,
yeah.
Hey, look, I carry you when we fly all the time, girl. But like, if we're going to really connect, you got to learn how to fly yourself. Like,
yeah.
I, you know, everybody wants a woman they can take a flight with through the blue skies and look down upon humanity. But at the same time, you want somebody who can fly next to you.
I like how he just picks up her car while she's in it.
Oh, when he was taking her there, yeah.
I think it was great for her to get a chance to see what it's like to be Superman every day, and I think that's a really nice juxtaposition for a couple to examine their relationship. And I think it was a really great story they told with it.
And that was probably the best splash page, I think. You know, the kiss from the moon.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the
That
back
was kinda
cover
cool.
of the back cover,
yeah.
the hardcover, man. That's probably my favorite
That
panel.
was
of the whole
probably
thing.
one of my favorite panels. So
Yes,
so.
the panel that faced,
You know, that was her
load.
present. She said, you know, hey, you know, this is what I always wanted to do. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, man. Lois has
And
never
then,
been hotter.
come on, he gets 2 times. The way they played this off was pretty cool. You know, the one time, you know, the reveal, and that's how they ended. He's pulling open the chest. And then at the end of this one, he basically says, you know, I want to marry you, but she's asleep. And she falls asleep, it doesn't hear it. And you're like, oh, come on. So no, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It wasn't bad. It was, you know, it's just I'm not familiar with DC and I didn't know all these characters, and it seems kind of silly a little bit.
In my opinion, this is when DC's at their best, when they're heartfelt, there's hope, and there's fun. Not everything has to be, Batman hiding in the shadows.
That's true.
Slice the ribbons.
What about you, Andy? Did you have a favorite issue among the first 6?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the first 1 and 2 or 1, 2, and 3, but that whole Fortress of Solitude moment, the Aladdin's carpet ride, I'm with Drew on that. I really enjoyed that part. And then I really enjoyed the hilarity and the comedy, the lightheartedness when Atlas Man and Hercules, I believe it is, when they're trying to vie for her, and will each of us perform a super feat of strength in honor of
Samson, I think.
Samson? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The most incredible feat wins her company. And she's like, wins my company? What? and then after a couple of panels, they roll into that arm wrestling contest, and Superman's just there whistling away. And then the arm wrestling contest wins.
Show when he busted his arm
with the front page of the news, and both of his arms are busted. Atlas Man's arms are busted. I like the lightheartedness. I like the hilarity of that. And then that's kind of, and then it rolls into that iconic panel, that gorgeous panel. But then I don't know Jimmy Olsen. So when you move into episode 4, I was kind of departed from the rest of the story there, just trying to learn.
That's not the Jimmy Olsen I think of, this is a completely different Jimmy Olsen for me.
I still enjoyed it, but the first 2 or 3 episodes or issues were my favorite by far.
Yeah, I think for me, like I said earlier, issue 6, I guess it's kind of interesting. We almost all had different picks for our favorite issue. That's kind of crazy. But I had to pick issue 6 just because I like seeing Mom, Pa Kent. I like the crypto stuff, of course.
Yeah.
But, them, sometimes I just like getting into this deep, crazy, insane, plausible, possible DC lore where, you start talking about like these distant timelines with, unknown Superman and Superman League from 45 billion AD BC or wherever. Yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where they're from. They're just these future characters that are there to show Superman's influence that he had while he was alive and his legacy that is going to continue after, what happens at the end of All-Star Superman. But it goes from, just fun with crypto to kind of funny, especially when Lana Lang and Pete Ross are sitting in the diner. Like, how much longer are we going to pretend that he's not Superman? And Pete Ross is like, don't be quiet, Lana. Come on. And into the seriousness that happened at the end, where it's a very touching ending where you have to see Superman standing in front of Pa Kent's gravestone. Yeah. So it just gets all the feels in like 24 pages of comic book. So, in my opinion, the best in this first run. The second run has its good parts too, but maybe we'll cover that at a future time.
So the whole thing's only 12 issues?
Yes. It's 12
I'm probably going to keep reading. I'm going to keep reading when we're done here.
Yeah, man, you got to see what happens between him and Lex.
I got to see what happens.
You can go online to Amazon or go to your local comic shop and grab the single book with all 12 volumes in there for a very reasonable price with the new label on it.
Or if you got the DC Universe app.
That's what I got, DC Universe.
That's how I read it.
Or if you have the absolute,
kind of cool that way, actually.
I just spent $99.99 on a hardcover plus $18 shipping. You can,
yes,
that's a lot of DC Universe.
I'm jealous.
I enjoyed it enough that I definitely want to buy the whole series in a book.
Nice.
I did not. I won't buy it. No.
My last question. I'll start with JB on this one. Clark Kent. What did you think of the way Grant,
the bumbling idiot Clark Kent
compared to Superman?
I mean, he truly portrayed Clark as the complete polar opposite of Superman. As a matter of fact, I think Lex Luthor even says that. Yeah. You are the complete opposite because he is a bumbling, fumbling idiot. Falling all over himself, bumping into people in the streets. I mean, it's they take it to the next level, it seems, of him.
Do you remember that panel though, JB, where he bumped into the street, but he actually saved his life at the same time?
Is that what he did from a car wreck?
Yep.
Yeah. And Luthor's gonna get shot during this prison break scrum, and he trips, like he's falling over and just happens to punch the guy in the face. So it was good. I enjoyed it, man.
Yeah,
that was it.
It's like, oh, my ulcer.
He bumps into the guy, and the guy gets pissed off. But right behind him in the next line there is part of a car that crashes that would have killed him if he didn't bump into him.
The one I was kind of confused. I was a little confused where Lois in her birthday episode, the one that Drew was like, she kept saying, but you weren't impersonating Clark, but you weren't, like she doesn't believe that he's Clark Kent. Like,
yeah,
but you can't. And I still don't understand this. So, I actually was trying to read up on this. How could people not see him? Is he supposed
power of the glasses, man?
Power of the glasses, right? Okay,
but his whole demeanor. He
didn't have his glasses during the prison break.
But here's the thing about Clark Kent, right?
Right? I don't have my glasses during the prison break.
When he's Superman, his shoulders are always back. His head is always held high. He is always 100% confident when he appears. You don't see him as Superman having these moments of, oh, geez, I got to worry about that. I got to worry about this. And when he's Clark Kent, he takes on a completely different persona. And I think that this book is a testament to the fact that the power of those glasses is more than that. The guy is a fantastic actor.
Yeah,
he's doing his best Clark Kent shtick, and he's committed to it. So
I don't read a lot of Superman. Was Clark Kent always this kind of? Because this seemed like he was over the top.
Bumbling Clark Kent is a Silver Age deal. Like that kind of goes away when you get into the late 70s and the early 80s stuff, but if you go back and you read those Silver Age Superman stories from the 60s into the 70s, you're going to get a lot of really great bumbling Clark Kent. Clark Kent is the loser, Superman is the winner. That's and there's a stark contrast between the two, and that's something else that harkens back to earlier days of Superman.
And I feel like the last great interpretation of that, obviously besides All Star, was Christopher Reeve in the Superman movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always thought that's kind of where they drew inspiration from, kind of for the big glasses look and that stuff that he had in the first couple Superman movies. But to JB's point, I remember that scene from, I think it was issue 5, where he doesn't have the glasses on. And that is one of my whole favorite scenes in the book, actually, because at that point, in my opinion, it almost doesn't even matter about his secret identity with Luthor at that point, because Luthor is convinced he's won at that point. I don't think Luthor cares who Superman is anymore, because he knows he's already won with the whole thing that happened with the sun.
The sun, yeah.
And then Clark almost even knows this too, because he's not even wearing his glasses. And that's when he just drops the whole facade and he just gets to the main point. He's just like, we could have did so much good together, you and Superman. You could have saved the world. And Lex is just there. He's just like, well, I hate Superman. Basically, that's all you need to know. And it's just such a good scene. Like if there's one essential scene that happened in this whole first trade that relates to everything that happens in the second half, it's probably that one. So with all that being said, what are your guys' grades on this? I guess I'll start. I'll give it that 9.8. You guys know how much I love this one. JB?
I enjoyed it. I absolutely enjoyed it. And I will tell you that every book, I don't have to compare books to themselves, because you can have, everybody can be a 9.8. It depends on the book itself, right? This I would probably put in the 8.5.
Nice. What about you, Andy?
I'm going to go 9.0, and I liked it, and I liked it enough to buy the full book to keep in my collection to read again and again. But, I'm not entirely sold on Superman still. So 9.
Yeah.
Drew?
My personal favorite Superman story is the Jonathan Kent Rebirth Tomasi stuff. I love that. I think it's, when I think of Superman, that's what I think of immediately at this point in my life. I'm really sad that it's gone, but I tell you what, if somebody said, sell me on Superman, give me a Superman book to read, this is the one I'd give them. This is a 9.6.
Cool.
Yep, wow. Couldn't agree with that point more. So, well, hopefully you guys at home enjoyed that review. Definitely, if you guys got suggestions, put them in the comments below after this video has aired, and we'll add them to a future randomizer, because we're always looking for reading suggestions on this show. besides the ones that I pick. And luckily Drew picked this one, but I think I psychically went into Drew's mind like All-Star Superman.
I love this
Paired
one.
up with Board again last week, and then they
Yeah.
both won back to back. So
Good stuff.
totally using mind control somehow to make Drew pick books for me. I love it.
That happens when you're under the tutelage of the great legend. You learn all the mind control techniques.
There you go.
Yeah. So somewhere there may be an alternate universe where DruManchu's favorite brand is DC Comics. So tonight we're going to talk about some alternate
universes.
So the first one I want to talk about is one of my favorites. So at the time when the first book for this universe launched, it was around the year 2000. And it was kind of a transitional year for a lot of reasons in comic books. The Marvel bankruptcy thing was kind of still fresh on a lot of people's minds. DC was kind of in a transitional state story-wise as well. And with, their editorial getting switched around back and forth. And just getting into, just like going to the shop and buying a new comic and getting into it. It was a little hard to do at that point. So when Ultimate Spider-Man #1 came out, it was a fresh start because you had the movies coming out and being announced, whether it be X-Men or Spider-Man. So people wanted new, fresh comics to read. But in my opinion, the regular Marvel 616 and even on the DC side, it was kind of hard to go pick up a book and get into a new storyline and start the storyline fresh. So I think for me, around that time, the Ultimate titles were a very good way to go. And I think, the sales back then definitely proved that, because I think at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Ultimate Spider-Man at the time was outselling Amazing Spider-Man.
It certainly was.
So, Drew, did you have any fond memories of the Ultimate Universe?
There's a lot that I like about the Ultimate Universe. I was definitely an Ultimate X-Men guy. I thought that Ultimates, both Ultimates 1 and 2, were both really fantastic stuff. And it's just kind of a modern take, just a reimagining, a slight askew from the 616. It wasn't a huge departure, just kind of like an update. And I dug it. I thought that the things that they changed were things that, could be changed. There wasn't anything that was sacred. They broke in continuity when building the Ultimate Universe. I think that the fact that it's gone too soon is kind of upsetting. We do occasionally get a peek through Miles Morales' ongoing book, through some of the other titles. Maker is now in the main Marvel universe. So you get some Ultimate. Reed Richards is still hanging around. There are definitely Ultimate characters that are still out there, and I love those characters. Some of it is just gone too soon, man. Jimmy Hudson, whatever happened to him?
Yeah, and they had some phenomenal creative teams on those books. I mean, like Brian Bendis and Mark Bagley. That's the main creative team people think of, especially that, what was it, 111 issues or something like that of Ultimate Spider-Man, I believe. They let in with Mark Millar and Adam Kubert on Ultimate X-Men, and then Mark Millar once again with Brian Hitch on those Ultimates books. They had some huge books going out there. So I'm curious to hear from the guys who probably hadn't had a chance to read a lot of the Ultimates. Like, Andy, do you have any experience in the Ultimate Universe?
None whatsoever, man. I've got a bit of a hot take on all these alternate universes and whatnot.
Yeah, please.
Growing up as a young man, people know me or people don't know me. I'm a huge Punisher fan. Being a Punisher fan, I was pulled into the Marvel 2099 deal in the 90s and collected the Punisher run and started reading some of the other stuff. I like what it is. It hasn't held up well over time, but once I got into that, as time went on and they started introducing more alternate universes, alternate storylines, it just became layer and layer and layer and layer. And when I'm, late teens, early 20s, the last thing I want to do is stack myself with a giant load of books to try and read and keep up with. I want to be out. Be a young adult. So it actually forced me to recoil on comic book collecting. And it is also a period in my life where I stopped collecting altogether. So I missed out on a lot of those alternate universes. Looking back now as an older person, I am really excited to dig in and read like Age of Apocalypse. There's Days of Future Past I never read. That was even, what was that, 80s, late 80s, early 90s? I didn't read that one. That was a 50-cent book, so that was probably in the mid to late 80s. There's all kinds of good. The Wastelands, Old Man Logan. I haven't read that yet. The more we talk about alternate universes, alternate timelines, and time travel, and the older I get, for some reason, the more I want to get drawn in. So I do want to go back. I'm completing runs on the 90s 2099 stuff. Even though it's not super great, it's still something I want to read and collect. And once I get done with that, then I want to move into a lot of these other items.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Old Man Logan, which that'll have to be added to a future randomizer now. It's kind of funny how that's kind of taken off over at Marvel with, Old Man Hawkeye and Old Man Quill and Old Man this and Old Man
Avengers of the Wasteland is a new book.
Hey, Drew, can you tell me why these Old Man books have taken off in the last several years?
Yeah, for the same reason that when you dive into these pocket universes, they become intriguing in the first place, and that is all the Easter eggs, all the continuity that they sprinkle throughout that gives you this full world that is fully realized as kind of a what if story. And I think that DC has Elseworlds, where they tell really, really great stories, and some of those spin off into their own universes and you're going to get more stories from that. Some of them are less successful. Marvel did the what if thing for a long time, and I think they're throwing a lot of those things back out there. But these universes need to be fully realized and fully fleshed out in the same way that a Marvel 616 universe is, that a main DC continuity is, like a New 52 or pre-Flashpoint or post-Crisis or wherever you put it. The world has rules, characters have interactions, and it's cool to see those a little bit askew. Like, one of my favorite books over the past couple of years was the SpiderGwen stuff, the Jason SpiderGwen stuff.
My fire.
Well, you can talk about it all you want, man. There's no fire for everybody to cook their meat. Yeah. But like the one thing I love about that is, like, I thought that story started getting muddied when they spent too much time in the 616, right? Or they spent too much time interacting between universes. I think the best stuff in that run was like Matt Murdock as the Kingpin, whereas like they sent some assassins after Spider-Gwen. And or Spider-Woman in that universe.
Spider-Woman, yeah.
And it's Kitty Pryde and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Right? And instead of Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, it's the untouchable Shadow Cat, right? And the incredible Mr. Murderhands is they called.
That's what they're called, yeah.
It's so awesome that you just get like, and Wolverine's going to show up. Sure, like, is he a huge part of the story? No, but you get to see where Logan is in that universe, and it's just really exciting. I think you get those builds of continuity in these new worlds. You get to see everything from a skewed perspective, and it's interesting to see where everything stacks up.
All right, JB, I need to hear more about Spider-Gwen.
No, I had that at the top of my list, and I was thinking about alternate universes. Some of the stuff that I had written down was Days of Future Past. Nice. I loved the what ifs growing up, man. There was some great what if stories. But and I was trying to think about, would you consider, Secret Wars 1 an alternate universe kind of story, or was it really built into the continuity of what was going on there? I'm not sure.
I think some websites list it as an alternate universe.
And one of the ones I remember reading when I was young was the House of M. Would you consider that an alternate universe?
House of M is definitely a pocket universe. Yeah,
that's a pocket universe. So that one, I had them all. The House of M was something that was huge. So that would be my top pick. But right now on the newer stuff, what do I think of now? Boom, Spider-Gwen. That early run, that first, even her telling that whole story was, she got bit, and that's the whole way that they told that as an alternate universe. I thought was fantastic. And then it rolled into Miles' alternate universe, which is still going. I think it's going strong. So anyway, I think it's here to stay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of going back to the Ultimate style formula, I think DC took a big notice of this like in the late 2000s, because we just covered All-Star Superman. They also had All-Star Batman, which we kind of dabbled on last week. I think that was kind of supposed to be their answer to the Ultimate stuff. But for whatever reason, the format didn't take off, or something didn't go right, or what have you, at least on the Batman side. I think the Superman side went great, but the Batman one was iffy. But I think out of that, somehow we ended up getting the Earth 1 books too, which is basically the same style format. So the Earth 1 DC books They're basically just like these hardcover prestige format one-shots. There's only like a handful of them. I think there's at least 2 Batman ones, 3 Superman ones, which I read all those, a couple Teen Titans, a couple Wonder Womans, and a Green Lantern. I think that's everything. But it allows whatever creator ends up getting the title, they basically pick their artist and they get to do whatever they want with the character. And I think one of the most inventive ones they had was that Gabriel Hardman Green Lantern book. Complete reimagining of the Green Lantern. Basically, he's just an astronaut. He crashes on a moon and finds Abin Sur, and he finds the Green Lantern ring that way. And he gets jettisoned to another planet where he finds like a scientist named Kilowog, and they kind of start to like, it's just a darker, grittier version of Green Lantern. And it's just, it's what these books should have been to begin with, in my opinion.
I also check that one out.
Yeah, I highly recommend the Green Lantern one. The Batman one is really good too. I don't know if Drew would like it because I know him and Gary Frank. Gary Frank's one of his favorite artists, I'm sure. But it's Jeff Johns, Gary Frank. And it's basically a flawed version of Batman. You don't see that too often. I think Jeff Johns kind of sat back like, what can I do for a new version of Batman that no one's seen before? And this is in a realm now where we basically have Bat God. He can do everything. He can outthink everyone and do anything he wants. In this version, the opening panel is him like firing his little grappling hook, swinging. Guy punches him, and he just falls on a dumpster. That's how the book starts.
Because that's what would happen if you really tried to be Batman.
And meanwhile, in my opinion, the real star of the book is Alfred, who's this like war medic. He's grizzled. He almost reminds me more of, oh God, what's his name? Like Heisenberg from the end of Breaking Bad. He kind of has that look in the book. And he actually goes around with a shotgun toward the end of the book. So you don't mess with Alfred in Batman Earth 1.
Big inspiration for the BVS Alfred.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Jeremy Irons version of Alfred, which is probably my favorite thing about that movie.
Oh, I agree 100%.
It's really great. I really love Batman Earth 1. Superman Earth 1 I can't have the same sentiment towards.
Yeah.
I think that though these universes that kind of spawn from something smaller and grow into like their own thing are some of my favorite takes on alternate universes. I love Injustice. And I think that Deceased kind of took the same pattern that Injustice did, making you care about this pocket universe by focusing on smaller characters and moving it along that way. I know Injustice went full Harley Quinn for a while, and Deceased was like, oh, we're killing off Batman in the first issue, so like get over that. So there are these universes that kind of exist with a different power dynamic between these characters. That's my favorite DC stuff, really, is the Elseworlds stuff. And it's because you get these little nuggets that fill in the continuity in the way that I find really, really satisfying. But when I think alternate takes, I think alternate universes, I think the queen of runs with pocket universes is X-Men. X-Men is all about, we have a dystopian future. Let's go back in time and fix it. Oh shit, we created 4 more pocket universes, right? and one of my favorite series of all time is this Age of Apocalypse. When I was a kid and they were like, oh, guess what? We're canceling all those books you're reading. And we're going to roll everything into one story with Legion Quest. And then we're going to release an Alpha, an Omega, a source book, one tie-in, 2-part tie-in to tell you what everybody else in the universe is doing, an 8 4-issue series that are going to tell every corner of the X-Men universe in this alternate universe. There is a lot packed in here. There's a lot. There's a lot to read. Not all of it's necessary, but every piece of it gives you something different that gives you a different look at what's going on in this universe. And I love it. They've come back and they've reattached themselves to the Age of Apocalypse. They did the tie-ins with the Uncanny X-Force run. There's a lot of really great stuff that comes out of this. But you also, JB, you were talking about House of M. That's another pocket universe. Just this past year, we got Age of X-Man. We got Age of X before that. These are characters that lend themselves through their interpersonal relationships to just kind of tilt it on its head a little bit and examine them from a different angle. And I think that, you know, being an ensemble cast like X-Men is a perfect opportunity for that.
There's one that I've always wanted to read, and I forgot about it until I got this link. This Superman Red Sun looks like an alternate universe that I got to read that, man. I've heard people talk about Superman Red Sun. And
what's been added to our randomizer a couple of times? It's just never landed.
Let's hope we get it on there.
Yeah.
That one sounds like one, you know.
Yeah, it just goes into the Elseworlds imprint for DC too. I was going to mention that was one of those books, just like Kingdom Come was an Elseworlds imprint. So DC kind of introduced that. They're like, we got rid of our own multiverse, so we're going to do the Elseworlds now. So we just do whatever the hell we want, and that's kind of what they did. It was like a series of annuals, and then they finally turned it into something more, because I think you got, you know, all those crazy Batman titles, like the one like in Batman and Blackest Night, Batman Gotham by Gaslight, and then, like I said, Kingdom Come, Red Sun, Superman. There's a lot of just great, awesome one-shots and miniseries that came out of that label.
Now, would Heroes in Crisis be considered an alternate, or was that in continuity again?
Unfortunately, that is in continuity.
That is in continuity.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I think that's what's so great about Black Label, is they're bringing back these alternate universes. Like currently, my favorite story at DC right now is that White Knight, Batman White Knight.
Yeah,
it's a really great alternate take on Batman, in the same vein as like Dark Knight Returns, and it's got a lot of really, really cool Easter eggs throughout that flesh out these worlds, man. And that's the best part about it. It's like Old Man Logan was great, right? But it's even better when you see Giant Man's skeleton, and you're like, oh, that's what happened.
So
when you see the Venom dinosaur, and you're like, ooh, what happened there? And then you see Red Skull, spoiler alert, completely lose his mind and go power mad when all the heroes are dead. And then you're just like, okay, what else is wrong with this world? And then you get Old Man Hawkeye, which fleshes out a whole nother corner. And then you get the Old Man Quill, which does another little corner. And everything kind of pieces itself together. The Old Man Logan series, where he was in the 616, explains a lot of what was happening in the Wasteland. They killed him off in Dead Man Logan, which ends in the Wasteland. And now you can read Avengers of the Wasteland, which is that universe continued. It has a book you read every month when it comes out. And it only had one issue, and it wasn't that great. But still, it's a nice way of examining these worlds, man.
So is Batman Last Night on Earth in continuity or not?
No, man, that's Elseworlds.
That's gotta be awesome. He's walking around with Joker's head. Come on, man.
I've been enjoying that quite a bit.
You know, going back to White Knight, I appreciate that book, not for Batman, but just for the phenomenal take Sean Gordon Murphy had on Joker. That is a Joker. It should have just been called Joker White Knight, in my opinion. He did such a great job, like, just making this, like, Jack Napier character relevant again. I don't think it's even a name they've really used since the 89 Batman movie. If there was another reference to it, I'm not sure of it, but I'm sure a lot of writers kind of like read that run, and they're probably just like, why didn't I think to do this? Like, make Joker a good guy somehow. And he's really going to be a bad guy by trying to make Batman the bad guy of Gotham.
Right.
It's such a good book. Like, that's another one, like almost with All-Star Superman. Like, if you're going to read an alt take on Batman, for me, it's White Knight. I would hand somebody.
The second run is probably the best Azrael story ever.
It is. I agree.
You know what? I have fond memories of Azrael, right? Mm-hmm. I read all that Nightfall stuff as it came out. That was like my childhood. I had the X-Men and I had the Batman, and that's kind of the two stories that I was reading, the two universes I was concerned with. I didn't give a damn about Superman, but like, hey, a Nightwing book that's tied to Batman, I'll read that. So those are the kind of characters that I was following, and then you see Azrael after Nightfall become the Nightfall Batman, which is like one of the greatest character designs of all time. If you go back and read it, man, what a jerk! And he's like you can't really root for him, and there's nothing really that interesting about him, and nothing they've really done with him since has really been that interesting, in my opinion. But man, is he cool in this White Knight universe? He's just really badass.
Andy, are there any other alternate universes that you've been really drawn to? You want to talk about?
Not at the moment. I'm learning quite a bit tonight that there's a lot that I'd want to read. There is a lot that I want to read, though.
I actually know one more I just thought of that I would recommend to people. It's like an alternate take. Is for a while, and they're actually starting to bring it back at Marvel. They had this The End line where they had, I think it started with Hulk The End, and then they did like Punisher The End, and then the Marvel Universe The End. It was basically like their way of like, we're going to take a creative team that was kind of like a bread and butter team for this character. Like, for instance, when they did Hulk, they had Peter David and Del Keown, and they basically like, we're going to make a final version or final story for that character. It is. So, okay, so they did The End Captain Marvel. Okay.
Yeah, this is the future, and this is how Carol dies.
Interesting.
It's kind of they've done Venom, they did Miles Morales, they did a Captain America with art by Eric Larson, just came out this past week. Wow. I did not read that yet, but it's on my list of things to do. Just, what if stories, basically. They're like, what if you had to tell right now, if you looked at continuity and you said, well, where are we headed? Where is this character going to die? Where are their last breaths going to take place? How's that story going to develop? That's how they did it. And with this Captain Marvel, Kelly Thompson is writing the run right now, and she wrote the end of it. So it's kind of a cool take. I dig it.
Yeah, I think the Hulk one is still my favorite, just because like the world's already ended. It's just a dust ball base, and it's just the Hulk walking around getting attacked by like giant radioactive bugs and getting mad. And then it's all about just the inner battle between Bruce Banner and the Hulk. They don't want to have anything to do with each other, and Banner keeps trying to kill himself, but when he does, he turns into the Hulk and saves them on accident, and they keep feuding. By the end of it, the Hulk finally silences Banner, and then he's just kind of sitting there lonely by himself, and he just kind of like whimpers like Hulk lonely or something like that, and then it begins, and he's just like, oh man. So they're all I think the Marvel Universe one was like 6 issues, and it was just basically Thanos winning. So, and it was written by Jim Starlin, of course. So
Thanos wins. That's what he does.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
All right. So any final thoughts with us talking about The End? Any final thoughts on alternate takes, alternate realities? JB, we'll start with you.
I enjoy them. I think I look forward to whatever the next one is, I'm still reading them now. I I enjoy them. That's my take. Keep bringing them. That seems to be it gives the writer some creative, you know what I'm saying. It just opens it all up. So I hope you edit this down.
Done. You asked me to do some work here, JB. I'll edit something from a previous episode, like I love DC Comics. Drew,
I love DC Comics.
I love these alternate takes. I always think it's kind of a slippery slope for me as a guy who buys so many comics that like, oh great, now they're going to release 14 different, SpiderGwen universe books. But I will read the X-23 of Spider-Gwen's universe. I will read you give me a weird tertiary character, throw them in an alternate universe, and I'll start caring about them based on what you've shown me from that universe so far. But I think that, what ifs and Elseworlds stories are a great way for creators to flex their muscles and give us something different, give us something outside the box, and have some freedom to play around a little bit. And I think that more often than not, it results in some really, really great stories.
Awesome. Andy, what are your final thoughts on all this?
Bear with me here. Love of everything that is holy. Stop doing terrible Punisher alternate reality stuff. Frankencastle.
Frankencastle rules.
The most recent Punisher 2099 was terrible. Let's do something super cool, alternate universe with the Punisher. I agree. Frankencastle, it was funny. I like the alternate universe stuff. I want to dig deeper into a lot of the stuff I haven't seen. I want to read more. I want to collect more of that. But for the love of God, give me something cool, Punisher related, alternate universe that isn't like super way out there.
I may feel your anger.
Oh, like when he became an angel. I was like, oh my Lord. All right.
Now, my final take on alternate takes is I think when the main continuity is letting you down, at least you got somewhere to go. For instance, like I said, I had the same problem as a lot of you guys. There was a time in comics where I just wasn't interested in what was going on with anything. And when these movies were coming out and they were all pretty good, I was like, man, I just had that itch again. I wanted to read something. I wanted to feel fresh. I wanted to understand what was going on right away. And luckily, the alternate line was there to go when I got back into comics. And by the way, Marvel Zombies, we didn't even talk about that. Thumbs up.
Oh, God, yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good one. But yeah, it's just a good, like right now, Batman White Knight, we talked about Curse of the White Knight. Not too much into the current Batman stuff for the most part, so I'm getting White Knight. It's a great backup for, to get that Batman fix once a month. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought JB was saying he was number one.
No, I got kids. The kids are coming in over here. You're like, ah.
But yeah, highly recommend those great titles we talked about tonight. But if anyone has any titles we didn't talk about, or just want to talk about your favorite titles, definitely put them in the premiere comment. Put them in the comments below because I'm interested to hear them. What did us goofballs forget to talk about? Like I said, I almost forgot to mention Marvel Zombies. Once again, thumbs up for that. Don't kill me, please. We're not talking about it.
Forget something major.
What's that?
Chris Barrett is definitely in the chat.
Oh, Chris Barrett.
Chris Barrett's in the chat. Shout out to Chris Barrett in the chat.
Ricky Markstack, Chris Barrett, the Mastodon. Y'all better show up is all I know.
Better show up now.
Probably saw premiere just like. Anyway, with all that being said, one last announcement. Obviously, since we're not live once again, sorry for the premiere instead of the live gimmick. But we can't do a randomizer since we have no chat wherever direction it is, and there goes my hard drive for some reason because I'm talking with my hands. I probably edit but not edit because I'm lazy. But anyway, we have no randomizer because we have no live chat.
But what are we going to do?
We got a big announcement for next week. So
what are we going to do?
I got an idea, guys. I got an idea. Let's read an alternate universe story.
Let's read an alternate universe story. Oh, yeah. Gentlemen, I have never read Watchmen, so this will be good.
Neither have I. I'm a virgin as well.
All right.
As everyone knows who's living under a rock or not, it's pretty much reading. They teach it in classes. It's on actual literal reading lists or literary reading lists. But we also have a special guest who's joining us next week. It's the great legend who's been obsessing about the Watchmen recently. So he's been reading a lot of the before Watchmen stuff, and he's like, man, I need to read that main Watchmen title. So I think it's a great time to read it. There's so much new Watchmen content out there, whether it be Doomsday Clock, the before Watchmen stuff, the HBO TV series, which got rave reviews. I think it's time to watch The Watchmen. So what do you guys think about that?
Let's do it. So is it a 1 through 12?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
12 issues. We're reading all of them.
If you don't have this trade on your shelf, just go to Barnes & Noble and pick it up. All right. Go to Borders Books.
It's worth having.
Go to Borders Books when they were still open and get one of these. Go to Half Price Books. I'm sure you can find it there. You can find this anywhere where books are sold. You're going to find it anywhere you can find Moby Dick. You're going to find Watchmen. And there's a reason for that. And I can't wait for you guys to get your cherries pop at the Big Blue Dong.
All right.
Your neighbor's door and say, like, excuse me, may I borrow your copy of The Watchmen? And they better say yes. They better have a copy of The Watchmen.
Why has it got to be blue?
It is. It just happens to be blue. You can find out next week.
You'll find out.
Can it be average?
No, it's not average. Either if that's average, I'm living a sad existence over here.
Hold on.
I think Drew has fond memories of Dr. Manhattan. But anyway, this concludes our show. We'll go ahead and get into some final shout outs here. So, ComicManAndy, where can people find you on the internets?
Right here at the Comic Core family of shows, Monday through Friday. I'm popping in, popping out. You can always find me on Monday. Check out my own channel if you can find me, ComicManAndy. We're doing some hangouts, some unboxings, just some fun, cool stuff. Yeah, I don't really have a format, so just random stuff here and there. And then the Pinkies Out podcast, Pinkies with a Y. We're looking at doing another episode here soon.
Awesome. I can't wait for that. JB, what about you? Where can people find you?
Man, I'm on at least once a day, maybe twice, sometimes 3 times a day on my channel. Stop by the channel if you want to know what's going live in the comic book community. I maintain a couple playlists. I got a top pick playlist. I got a live stream playlist, constantly updating those. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. DruManchu, where can people find you on the internet?
Find me on the Comic Core, not only here on Monday nights, but throughout the week. I'll be popping up here and there, and occasionally I guest star over on the SNB network. I filled in for Boogie this past weekend on Comic Cast, where we had a really great interview with creator Dave Chisholm, who made the book Canopus. If you guys have not read that yet, check that out. It comes out next week, I believe, via Scout Comics. Really cool sci-fi story, deep stuff.
Good stuff.
Awesome. I'll have to look for that. Well, you can find me here on the Comic Core. Usually I am the host or with the most something. I don't have
Yeah,
the
there
right
it
times.
Here it is.
I'm part of that fun Friday show along with DruManchu. But definitely check out the rest of the Comic Core lineup. Tomorrow, Tuesday, you'll have those golden guys with JD Comics, DS Comics, and Knights of the Old. Wednesday, you'll laugh out loud. Laugh out loud Wednesdays on the world's greatest whatever.
The world's
greatest comic something show.
Did you hear they changed their name?
They did.
They
They
changed
finally
their name.
embraced my suggestion and become the Bear Island List show.
It's the second greatest comic
The
book
second
show.
greatest
Yeah,
comic book show.
Modern Men is the first.
Of
so
course, yes.
they, gave way.
Battle lines have been drawn, but
There
anyway,
you go.
if you watch it, it's a great show. You'll laugh. White Whale does the best intro to a show I've ever seen. White Whale Comics, Alec, he is awesome. They have John's Comics with Kids. That guy's definitely one of the best. Congrats to him again on hitting 1,000. You have Gone Too Soon, Comics Explained. Our friend Jason's a part of that. And then Bear Island Comics, man, that guy knows how to make a list, as Drew says. And then, of course, the Friday show, you'll catch me and Drew on there almost all the time, along with Comic Core Chad, Great Legends Show, and co-host Cat Ren Figures, a.k.a. Cinema Figures. So definitely check that out. All those shows, 10 p.m. Eastern on their respective nights. With all that being said, JB, would you like to take us out?
Don't forget, we had a good time.
Comic Core